A billionaire tech genius abandoned his pregnant girlfriend because investors said her black skin would hurt his brand. 21 years later, he sits in the front row of Silicon Valley's biggest summit, frozen in shock. The keynote speaker commanding the stage, the brilliant young woman disrupting his entire empire, is the daughter he threw away. She doesn't know his name. She doesn't know his face, but she's about to destroy everything he built without her. Hello, my beautiful souls. Before we begin this powerful journey, I want you to know something. You are not just viewers here. You are family. Every comment, every like, every moment you spend with us matters more than you know. Right now, someone reading these words needs to hear this story. Someone who feels abandoned. Someone who doubts their worth. Someone who wonders if the parent who left them ever thinks about what they lost. This story is for you. Take a breath with me. Close your eyes for just a moment. Repeat after me. I am worthy. I am brilliant. I was never the problem. Now let's dive into a story about the price of shame, the power of a mother's love, and a reunion that will shake Silicon Valley to its core. Hit that subscribe button right now. You are joining something special here. We're building a community of beautiful souls who believe in second chances and the power of truth. Drop your location in the comments below. I want to see how far our family reaches. Are you watching from Lagos, London, Los Angeles? Let me know where love has brought you today. God bless you and keep you. Now, let's begin. Daniel Simpson stood in his penthouse 40 stories above San Francisco, the city lights blinking like distant stars that had watched him build an empire on the foundation of his greatest betrayal. The email glowed on his screen. Katie Morrison, age 21, keynote speaker. Morrison, Margaret's maiden name, and 21 years old, exactly 21 years since the night Daniel had chosen money over love, whiteness over family, empire over the woman carrying his child. His hands trembled as he pulled up Katie's photo. Those eyes. Margaret's fierce intelligence stared back at him through his daughter's face. But the intensity in her gaze, the way she held her head, that was pure Daniel Simpson, the father she'd never known. Daniel, it's 4 a.m. Come back to bed. Victoria Ashford's voice drifted from the bedroom. His fiancée, daughter of the venture capitalist who'd funded his empire. The same venture capitalist who'd delivered the ultimatum 21 years ago. Daniel ignored her, pulling up article after article about Katie Morrison. MIT graduate at 19, founder of quantum intelligence systems at 20, revolutionary AI platform threatening to make next-gen technologies obsolete. His daughter was brilliant, more brilliant than he'd ever been, and she'd achieved it without his money, without his name, without his open doors. She'd achieved it despite him. The memory crashed over him like a wave. Margaret, 22 years old, holding the pregnancy test with tears streaming down her face. Daniel, we're going to have a baby. We're going to be parents. He'd held her that night, promised her everything would be okay. 2 days later, the investors had called their private meeting. Simpson, we're prepared to offer $50 million for your startup, but we need to discuss your situation. The lead investor had barely looked at him. The Morrison girl, we've heard she's pregnant. Margaret, Daniel had corrected, his voice weak. Her name is Margaret. Right. Look, we're not monsters. But our investor base, our target markets, they have certain expectations. An interracial relationship is already challenging for brand perception. Add a baby to the mix, and you're looking at significant resistance from conservative markets we're trying to penetrate. Daniel had sat there, 24 years old and terrified, as they spelled out his choice. Walk away clean. End the relationship. We'll structure the funding so you can't be traced to any child support. In 5 years, when you're established, you can date whoever you want. But right now, you need to be the face of American innovation. And that face needs to be uncomplicated. He told himself it was temporary. Told himself he'd find Margaret later. Make it right. Be a father once he was established enough that no one could take his company away. But later had turned into 21 years of cowardice. Now his daughter was coming to his summit, and Daniel had 14 days to figure out how to face the child he'd abandoned and the woman he'd never stopped loving. 14 days until his carefully constructed empire met the truth he'd been running from for 2 decades. Katie Morrison leaned over her laptop, the glow from the monitor illuminating the determination in her dark, curious eyes. The hotel suite was silent except for the hum of her server rack, a portable AI core she'd designed herself. Her creation, Eve, Enhanced Vision Engine, wasn't just a machine learning tool. It was consciousness coded through compassion, an AI that didn't just calculate but understood. And tomorrow, she'd unleash it before the world. Run simulation protocol, next-gen sample, Katie commanded softly. Eve's calm, synthetic voice replied, running integrity audit, estimated time 14 minutes. Katie rubbed her temples. She was exhausted. Months of sleepless nights, endless debugging, fighting every investor who told her to tone down the moral stuff. They wanted profit. She wanted justice. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mom. Margaret, big day tomorrow. Remember who you are. You were born for this. Katie smiled, typing back. Katie. I know, Mom. Love you. The simulation beeped. Integrity audit complete. 32 ethical violations found in NextGen's global network. Katie's eyes narrowed. Display source. Code lines scrolled like a confession. NextGen's data had been feeding unauthorized biometric information into private government contracts, tracking civilians without consent. But that wasn't the part that froze her blood. Source file. Simpson Core Directive. Simpson, she murmured. A bio popped up on her holographic display. Daniel Simpson, CEO of NextGen Technologies. A photo of a man in his mid-40s appeared. Sharp suit, piercing blue eyes, a smirk that screamed arrogance. Why do you look familiar? She whispered. Margaret Morrison sat in her quiet Massachusetts home, grading papers when her inbox pinged. From unknown sender subject. You'll want to see this. Attached was a single image. Daniel Simpson, smiling, shaking hands with another executive. Beneath the banner, Global Tech Summit 2025. Her heart seized. Daniel. The name she hadn't said aloud in 2 decades. The man who'd promised her the world, then shattered it with silence. Her trembling hands hovered over the trackpad. She could hear his voice from years ago. Soft, convincing, terrified. Just give me time, Maggie. I'll come back for you. For us. He never did. She exhaled shakily and looked toward the photo on her mantelpiece. Katie at 6, beaming with missing front teeth and wild curls. Her daughter had Daniel's focus, his stubborn will, but none of his cowardice. Margaret had made sure of that. She picked up her phone, almost calling Katie to warn her, but stopped. What would she say? Your keynote might expose the man who ruined our lives. The man you've unknowingly modeled your company after. No, not yet. Margaret closed her laptop slowly. Some truths needed the right moment to surface, and that moment, she feared, was coming faster than either of them could prepare for. The auditorium was electric. Thousands of investors, founders, and tech journalists filled the room, their eyes locked on the stage as Katie Morrison walked out. Graceful, poised, unstoppable. Daniel sat in the front row, breath caught in his throat. She looked like Margaret, the same fierce eyes, the same conviction. He clenched his fists to keep from trembling as she began. "Ladies and gentlemen, technology without accountability is tyranny, and today, we're here to end that." The crowd erupted in applause. Behind her, Eve's holographic interface lit up. "Real-time data analysis commencing," the AI announced. Katie smiled. "Let's start with a company that shaped Silicon Valley as we know it, Next-Gen Technologies." Daniel's heart stopped. On the screen behind her, Next-Gen's network flashed red as Eve revealed illegal data mining operations, political manipulations, and falsified privacy certificates. Gasps filled the room. Phones came out. Cameras rolled. Katie turned to the stunned audience. "This is what happens when innovation forgets humanity." Daniel stood up suddenly, unable to contain himself. The crowd parted as he called out, "Who gave you permission to access that data?" Katie's gaze locked onto him. Silence fell. She didn't recognize his face, but something in her chest ached, like déjà vu carved into her DNA. "Truth doesn't need permission," she said softly. And with that, Eve finished its audit, broadcasting Next-Gen sins across every major tech outlet in real time. By the next morning, Next-Gen's stock had plummeted 82%. Daniel's face was everywhere. Headlines screaming betrayal, cover-ups, and ethical corruption. Katie had become a global symbol of moral technology. Interviews flooded in. Offers poured from every direction. But she felt hollow. That night, as rain tapped against her hotel window, a knock came at the door. "Mom," she whispered, surprised to see Margaret standing there, soaked from the storm. Margaret's eyes were swollen. She held out a small box. "There's something I should have told you a long time ago." Katie opened it. Inside lay a faded photograph, Margaret and Daniel, young and in love, and a letter, creased with time. "My dearest Maggie, I'm sorry for everything. They made me choose. I told myself I'd come back, but I was weak. If our child ever asks about me, tell her she was the best thing I never had the courage to keep. Daniel." Katie's breath hitched. He's my father." Margaret nodded, tears falling freely. "He built the company you just destroyed." Outside, cameras flashed. Inside, silence wrapped around the two women. The mother who'd loved too much, and the daughter who'd just unknowingly avenged them both. Across town, Daniel sat alone in his dark office, watching Katie's CNN interview replay on mute. When she smiled, Margaret's smile, he broke. For the first time in 2 decades, Daniel Simpson realized what true innovation had cost him. Not fame, not fortune, but family. 2 days after the summit, Next-Gen's headquarters looked like a war zone. Reporters swarmed the gates, investors fled, and lawyers lined the halls with sealed envelopes and grim faces. Daniel sat in his office for what he knew would be the last time. The walls that once represented ambition now felt like a mausoleum for every compromise he had ever made. His phone vibrated non-stop. Calls from the board, his fiancée, his PR team. But he ignored them all. On his desk sat a photo of Margaret he'd secretly kept all these years, tucked inside a book of quotes by Einstein. "The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything." He had watched. He had done nothing. He opened his laptop and began typing. Subject, press conference, urgent. Message, I will speak, publicly tomorrow at 9 a.m. Do not attempt to stop me. Then he called his assistant. Cancel everything, every meeting, every interview, every damage control plan. Tomorrow I face what I should have faced 21 years ago. That night, he wrote until dawn. drafting not a corporate statement but a confession, not the kind designed to save a career, but one meant to save a soul. The next morning, the entire tech world tuned in. Daniel Simpson walked onto the stage at NextGen's San Francisco headquarters without a tie, without his polished arrogance, just a man stripped bare. Cameras flashed, journalists murmured. He took a breath. Before I built this company, I built a lie. The room fell silent. I was 24 when I was told that loving a black woman would cost me everything. Investors said her skin would stain my brand. So I did the unthinkable. I walked away from the woman carrying my child. I told myself it was for the company. I told myself it was temporary. It wasn't. He paused, eyes wet. I built this empire on shame, and every dollar we made, every innovation we claimed, was haunted by the truth I buried. Somewhere, watching live from her hotel room, Katie froze. Margaret stood behind her, hand over her mouth. I don't expect forgiveness, Daniel continued, but I do expect accountability, starting with me. I'm resigning as CEO effective immediately. I've instructed my lawyers to transfer my shares to a foundation dedicated to ethical technology and diversity in STEM, named after the woman I failed, and the daughter who unknowingly reminded me who I was. He swallowed hard. The Margaret Morrison Foundation for Truth in Innovation. Gasps filled the room. Reporters shouted questions, but Daniel stepped away from the podium, tears streaming freely now. For the first time, he wasn't running from the cameras. He was facing them. 2 days later, a quiet knock echoed at Margaret's door. When she opened it, Daniel stood there. No suit, no entourage, just a weary man holding a bouquet of lilies. I had to see you, he said softly. Margaret stared at him, emotion and anger battling behind her eyes. You don't get to just show up after 21 years. I know. He lowered his gaze. I just wanted to say thank you. For raising her. For doing what I couldn't. Her eyes glistened. She didn't need your money, Daniel. She needed your courage. I didn't have it back then. No, she whispered, voice trembling. You didn't. A long silence hung between them before Margaret stepped aside slightly. She's in the backyard. Katie sat beneath the oak tree, laptop in her lap, typing furiously. When she saw him, she froze. He opened his mouth, then stopped, his voice caught between guilt and awe. You're brilliant, he said finally. Everything I could have hoped for. And more. She stood slowly. You watched my talk. I did. You built the company I just destroyed. He nodded. And I deserved it. She studied him for a long time, then asked quietly, why didn't you come back? He hesitated. Because every year that passed, it got harder to imagine you'd forgive me. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice stayed steady. I didn't do this to destroy you. I did it to fix what men like you broke. He smiled faintly. And you did. You really did. For a brief moment, silence stretched into something almost peaceful. Then she turned away, her voice breaking. I don't hate you, Daniel. But I can't call you Dad either. He nodded slowly. That's more than I deserve. A month later, the world had moved on, but the people at its center were still healing. Katie launched a new initiative with her mother, expanding the Margaret Morrison Foundation into a global movement for ethical AI. Her company, Quantum Intelligence, became the model for transparent innovation. During her first public appearance since Daniel's confession, Katie was asked, "What do you think of your father's legacy?" She smiled softly. Legacy isn't about what we build. It's about what we choose to repair. My father spent his life building walls. I'm here to build bridges, Somewhere in a quiet corner of the auditorium, Daniel watched from the crowd, unseen. His company was gone, his wealth redistributed, but for the first time in his life, he felt free. As the audience rose in applause, Katie's gaze drifted across the sea of faces. For a brief, fleeting second, her eyes caught his. No words, no gestures, just understanding. A final silent exchange between a man finally redeemed and a daughter finally whole. Daniel turned to leave as the applause swelled. Outside, the morning sun washed the city in gold. For the first time in 21 years, he didn't feel the weight of shame, only the quiet peace of having told the truth. And somewhere deep within the crowd's thunderous applause, a single voice, Margaret's, whispered through the years, proud and free. Now, we're finally even with the past.